Very special episode once again of RJ Talks. We're starting to move into the New York Jets. Another big surprise from last year was this team, right? With the exception of the quarterback position, there have been a lot of moves and a lot of changes regarding the wide receiver positions and the defensive positions for the New York Jets. So now we're going to be starting to veer into that team and seeing exactly what's up with them. Mecole Hardman was just traded over to the New York Jets from Kansas City. He played a significant role in Kansas City's offensive scheme as a solid, pretty much like number 3 wide receiver, I would say, behind Juju Smith-Schuster and
Travis Kelce and Sky Moore.
Yeah. So now Kansas City is without Juju and is without now Mecole Hardman, right? And the Jets have now parted ways with Elijah Moore, and they're trading him over to the Cleveland Browns, right? So we're going to be talking about them to start off. But before we start off, I do want to talk about Dont'a Hightower, Ricardo. Fantastic career with the New England Patriots. A clutch player, if I've ever seen one, on the defensive side of the game. And quite honestly, he deserves all the credit. On top of that, too, Devin McCourty as well. Both true Patriots that are hanging up their helmets for the very last time.
Two key components of that New England Patriots dynasty part 2. Dont'a Hightower, you know my feelings on him, Jose. I can bring it up a little later when we mentioned Devin McCourty, but I very much believe he was the Teddy Bruschi of that era of the New England Patriots defense, representing that number 54 well. But let's not waste any more time, man. Let's get into this podcast.
100%. Let's start the episode. I am Jose.
And I'm Ricardo.
Welcome back to RJ Talks, everyone. Okay, the dual threat, Mecole Hardman, Ricardo, being traded over to the New York Jets, right? As I was watching some highlights from Mecole Hardman and pretty much reflecting on the season that he just finished up, Super Bowl winning season with the Kansas City Chiefs, he looked to be a pretty key part of the offensive scheme in the sense that he is a dual threat, as I had just mentioned, right? He can receive the ball and he can rush it pretty well, right? He's not a big guy by any means. He's 5'10", 187 pounds, and he knows that because he is a very elusive player, right? So in the highlights that I had watched him, that I had recently watched him in, I noticed that he knows he's very strategic and he's very careful about his running, right? He's not all about just the power moves. He's not a strong runner by any means, but he is a very he plays to the defense, right? He plays to what the defense is giving him. And with that, it seems as though he has a pretty promising career ahead of him if he continues with this trend and if he is able to slip into the New York Jets offensive scheme as easily as he has with the Kansas City Chiefs. Stats-wise, he's looked pretty good. His average has started to steadily increase each and every year. When I say his average, I mean his receptions to his targets, right? So in 2019, he had 26 receptions of 41 targets, 6 TDs. So easily his best TD-wise, 41 of 62. His 2020 year, 2021, 59 of 83. And then 2022, 25 of 34. He had significantly less targets this past season simply because Patrick Mahomes was passing the ball around much more often than he usually did in the previous seasons. He had 4 touchdowns, though, so he still showed himself to be a solid number 3.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Jose. If there's anything that this move tells me about the New York Jets is because you had to switch out of Elijah Moore, Jose, because Elijah Moore was creating some rumblings in the season as a young player. I don't know if he's a rookie. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was already wanting trade requests, trade rumors because he wasn't getting the targets that he believed he deserved.
Yeah,
and very unfortunate because he was part of a really good team, and he's getting traded to the Cleveland Browns, so it's not a bad move specifically, let's say, per him. But I say it's a great move for the New York Jets because you have a veteran who knows what his role is, knows that he'll get the ball whenever he gets it, and he knows he's a specialist utility guy who he might only get the ball 3 times in a game, but one of those 3 times it'll be an important specific play like a reverse, an end around, or a punt return, or not a punt, not punt return per se, but like a quick screen, like an explosive play. He knows that he has to make explosive plays in order to earn his keep on the field. And that's what Mecole Hardman was for Kansas City. Granted, he was no Tyreek Hill, but when he had his opportunity with the ball, like you said, Jose, he definitely made the most with it. I mean, you just said he had 34 targets, caught 25 of those.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, he definitely made the most of his chances with the Kansas City Chiefs, and definitely a good young weapon for whichever quarterback is going to be for the New York Jets this season. That's something we'll find out, but it's taking a bit while to figure out what's going on, unfortunately. But the New York Jets have to make a decision soon because training camp is starting and draft is starting too, so it's just a matter of what's going to happen. But a solid key piece for this New York Jets offense, Garrett Wilson getting the double team. It'll leave some open spots for Mecole Hardman over the field.
Oh, yeah.
And you still got that's not Usama, but Alan Lazard as well.
Yes.
Some key receiver passes, not necessarily big guys, but guys who can like try to get open in space. And they're very much going to be a speed type of receiver core. Lazard's not as quick as Mecole Hardman or Garrett Wilson, but he's definitely the best route runner of the three. So it's going to be very interesting to see which quarterback goes behind this New York Jets offense, who looks like they're trying to build something to try to make a push for the postseason that they didn't last season.
And it's going to be important for whoever takes on that quarterback position with the New York Jets to recognize that each one of these receivers has a unique strength of their own, Ricardo. So moving forward into the 2023 season, the New York Jets have a pretty stacked wide receiver core, right? A very young Garrett Wilson who, correct me if I'm wrong, just won Rookie of the Year, right? This past season. Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year. So he made a splash going into this season as we had predicted beforehand, right? So the New York Jets are definitely starting to build a team, and we're anticipating them to pick up a leader that is good enough or that is coherent enough to recognize what the strengths are of all of these wide receivers. And then this is just me putting it bluntly, whoever takes this on is going to have astronomically high expectations, especially for a New York Jets team that has not been good for a very long time. I recall, Ricardo, the two of us talking about this quarterback position throughout the regular season that had just finished up. And we were saying that the New York Jets haven't had a good quarterback since, oh my goodness, I mean like Chad Pennington, right? Back in 2000, 2001, right? And even then he was plagued with injury after injury. I mean, he had shoulder surgery after shoulder surgery within 8 months, and he had 2 rotator cuff tears. It was bad for him, 100%. But there's no question that he might have been the franchise quarterback for the New York Jets. So, and
absolutely,
yeah. So for the wide receiver core that the New York Jets are starting to build, along with that show-stopping defense that they had put on this past season, there's no doubt that the New York Jets are really going to be betting on this quarterback that's going to be coming in, and which leads me to start talking about just touch on Aaron Rodgers for just a moment. His expectations going into this next season, if he were to be picked up by the New York Jets, are going to be substantially higher. The news market for those quarterback positions, or those New York teams in general, right, is so much higher than it is in Wisconsin. I mean, by far, there's no doubt. So even if he were to be chosen for that team, which arguably, Ricardo, they would have signed him already if they truly wanted him. They would have signed him already if they truly wanted him, because he has already expressed his interest anyway. And he was also the one saying that the Green Bay Packers are holding up. Holding up. They want you out. That front office wants you out too, right? There's no question about that.
So just to add a little bit to what you just said, Jose, as because I recently went to New York less than 6 months ago, this past year.
Correct.
I went through downtown Manhattan, dude, and it was great, trip of a lifetime. But one thing I noticed, how big like everything's commercialized there, and like they showed some NFL like ads there, like Thursday Night Football, some sports thing, ESPN being right there. Jose, I can only imagine if they get a franchise quarterback or if they get like the superstar quarterback, I can only imagine how crazy the ad revenue must be done there, the exposure, the amount of opportunities and everything like that. Just to add to your point, as far as like these expectations are sky high, especially with that media and that market. So whoever we're being like kind of vague here a little bit, but whoever takes on that role has to understand the responsibility that they're taking.
Oh yeah.
And Jose, if the New York Jets, to add a little bit more to this move that the Jets made with signing Mecole Hardman, what this is telling me is that if they keep that number 1 pick in the 13th pick in the first round, they're going to go offensive line. Because that's one of the glaring weaknesses of this team that's left on there is the offensive line. Because defense is solid. They really didn't lose anyone in free agency. They still have guys signed for this next season.
Yeah.
Well, wide receiver, they just added some weapons to help out Garrett Wilson. They have their running backs. Offensive line is going to be the move to take in this year's draft. So if they keep that first-round pick and they're able to stay with it, they'll be able to get some protection up front for that quarterback who's coming in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100%. And going into this next season, it's really anybody's ball game, and we're the ones that are being vague because we have no idea what the New York Jets are going to be doing up until this point. It's all just speculation, right? And of course, headline after headline's coming out right now saying that the Packers are holding out, the Jets are still holding out for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is all the eyes are going to be on him, so it's going to be payday for him if he decides to go over to the New York Jets. Sure, absolutely, but that's not including the media exposure that is going to be held over his head, right? Late 30s quarterback, old quarterback who hasn't seen a Super Bowl in who knows how long, right? In years. Hasn't seen a Super Bowl, hasn't won an NFC championship in years. So who's to say that he's going to be the one that's going to be taking the New York Jets to the promised land, so to speak?
Jose, there's rumors coming out also that they might be interested in Matthew Stafford as well, because you see the Rams trying to cut off salary cap in free agency.
Oh, yeah.
So who's to say they don't start over and just say, like, you know what, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish with Matthew. Like, let's try to get in somewhere else that he wants to play in with another good team as well. So personally, Jose, if it was up to me, I would have signed Lamar Jackson 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, right.
I was in New York Jets,
yeah, exactly.
There's your future there, and like you have your franchise quarterback, and you're ready. Your team is good to go. You just have to see what they put on the field, a possible contender. But like you said, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. But if this Aaron Rodgers thing holds out, Jose, I'm very curious to see if the New York Jets are going to go with Plan B somewhat, because I wouldn't say Matthew Stafford is as good as Derek Carr. Like he's he's had moments in the postseason, and he's younger than Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
So definitely very curious to see what could happen, because if you're able to save, like I said, if you're able to save that first round pick, Jose, there's some offensive line talent available that you can pick up and to help bolster up that line and help out that quarterback even more. So, like, sure, you didn't get Aaron Rodgers, but you get a younger version and a guy who still has some maybe some spark left. So we'll see, but it's all very exciting. It's all very exciting, and we're just waiting to see what happens, because it's definitely going to affect draft night.
As far as the front office decisions have gone for the New York Jets, I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to pick up pieces that are going to improve that team, with one of those being that offensive line, right? 100%. So let's go ahead and move on, Ricardo. Well, but before we do move on, I do want to touch on Elijah Moore for just a moment, and just let's bring some kind of clarity to what exactly his situation or what exactly his role was with the New York Jets, and why did they decide to trade him away, right?
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
So at this point in time, you've seen him. This past season was his second season with the NFL, right? The New York Jets picked him up in 2021, right? Another small guy, 5'10", 178, right? A small receiver for sure. We could maybe attribute some of his downsides to the poor quarterback play that was within this past season for the New York Jets, right? But even so, he was given targets. I mean, there's no question that he was given targets. In 2021, he had 77 targets, and in 2022, he had 65, right? So he had plenty of opportunities to capitalize on what he was given, literally what he was given. Right? In 2021, he had 43 receptions for 77 targets and 37 receptions for 65 targets. Yeah, and his first season having 5 touchdowns, and this last season only having 1 throughout the entirety of the season. So it looks as though Elijah Moore really did take a hit because he's under 60% as far as his efficiency goes. It only dropped going into this past season.
Plus, to your point, Jose, the difference between those 2 years is that the Jets won more this year than they did the year before. So it's possible that like his production was based off of garbage time yards that were coming in. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying it's possible the reason he had more stats the year before is because Jets were getting blown out. So like they just had to chuck it and like see a guy get open. Whereas this year they were very much more, not conservative, but like they played more efficient winning football and were in close score games. So
they were more methodical with their play. Yes.
Exactly. More methodical and less opportunities for like less wide open targets. But I mean, guy had his chances. Guy definitely had his chances, but he didn't help himself creating that narrative of wanting that trade. But he got his wish. He got his wish as he did earlier in the season, and he moved on to a different team.
I mean, if it were me, Ricardo, now we've never played in the NFL before and we haven't played college ball before, right? But if it were me, I would see myself not being in a position to make demands in my second year in a professional league, right? I mean, that's just me, Ricardo. I don't know if, let me know if I'm crazy. If I'm crazy, please tell me.
No, I'd say I'd be focused on getting that second contract, Jose, let alone making demands. I mean, try to get that contract extension first.
Oh my gosh. 22 years old and he's already making demands. He's making demands. Shoot. So I thought that was pretty hysterical on his part because, once again, I mean, he's the one that's really coming out and saying these things when he doesn't have the numbers or the production to show for it. You know, it would be a different story if he had continued on top, right? If he were a Lamar Jackson caliber player, therefore somebody deserving of that kind of contract money that should be coming to him, all right? So it would be different if he had already shown himself and he had already established himself within year 4 or year 5, right? But he's not even close to that. He's not even close to that type caliber player. And to be fair to him, Ricardo, he's only had 2 years with the NFL. All right, so who's to say that he's going to continue with that kind of that he's going to continue with this lackluster production, or if he's going to continue to develop after that? But even then, Ricardo, when I was watching his highlights, quite honestly, I was a little underwhelmed. I was underwhelmed by his style of play. I mean, how about you? What do you think?
Pretty much not. How's the best way I can explain this without being mean? He had some okay moments, but not enough to be the big personality that he was. I mean, if I heard this from Garrett Wilson, I would be like, okay. I mean, like, sure, he's a rookie, but like, I mean, look at what he did on the field. Like, look at his production and look at the plays he made to help his team win the game. So like that's the best way I can describe it, Jose. Is that like he's got a big mouth coming from a guy who's not high enough on the radar to make those kinds of speak that kind of way. And just I would say Mecole Hardman has had some more impressive stats than Elijah Moore, but it's just we'll see how that turns out. But like, I mean, Jose, they're almost the exact same size, except Mecole Hardman is bigger than Elijah Moore. He's 187. Right. Elijah Moore is 170. They're both 5'10.
Right.
So it very much is a trade for like the same type of body type receiver. But what I saw him from this season, Jose, nothing too exciting. I mean, I wouldn't rank him on top 25 receivers available, you know. So like, it's just, I don't know. I don't think he's a top 32.
I wouldn't either.
Let alone top 25.
I truly wouldn't either. I mean, I had watched his highlights, and like I said, I was a little underwhelmed. Even Mecole Hardman being the size that he is, which is one of my concerns, he could benefit from putting on some strength and being more of a power runner at some points, or a power receiver at some points. But, you know, I digress from the main point. The point is that Mecole Hardman is a significantly is a better player than Elijah Moore. He is a better receiver than Elijah Moore, both stats wise as well as ability and technical skill, right? And even then, Mecole Hardman is not even considered to be the second receiver on the depth chart, right? At that point, that spot belongs to Allen Lazard on this new team. So it looks as though So it looks as though the main concern here is ego, right? Elijah Moore being the one.
Ding, 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 ding.
Exactly. The main concern being ego. So Elijah Moore at this point, if he continues down this path, even with a quarterback like Deshaun Watson at the helm that's going to be taking over this Cleveland Browns team, or even Jacoby Brissett for that matter, right? He's going to have a run for his money. He's gonna have to humble himself a little bit and start taking a hint or two from Mecole Hardman. Assume your role, assume your position, and play that role efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, no, it's just he needs to calm down a little bit and just focus on playing first. Focus on playing first. Focus on doing what you can do better, and the rest will come. So you have the best thing for Elijah Moore at this point is because he has a franchise quarterback throwing him the ball.
Right.
So make the most of that opportunity.
Yes, yeah. Start proving yourself and assume that role with some humility. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and start moving on, Ricardo, if you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. Let's start moving on over to Cam Newton because he's been in the news recently, and I think speaking of an ego check, we'll get right into that. Do not go away. Ricardo, you know who's throwing at Auburn Pro Day? It's going to be Cam Newton, our old friend. As we were talking about, someone that is in dire need of an ego check, right? Somebody that did not even play in this league this past season, right, in 2022. And the last time that he did, in 2021, he had a brief stint once again with the Carolina Panthers, which, my goodness. Ricardo, what did you think of that small stint in 2021?
Okay. Now, I'm going to say this first. I preface this that I do not hate Cam Newton. Do not think that he did not have a good career. I do not think he is a bust. I think he did at most as he could with his potential.
Oh, yeah.
And did a very good job. You cannot tell he won an NFL MVP. It is in the history books. You cannot tell the history of football without mentioning Cam Newton. With that being said, he's absolutely ridiculous, Jose. He's washed. Like, he's completely washed. Like, he's out of his prime. And the reason being is because the style of play that he did throughout his career is what led to this. But being a quarterback and trying to truck linebackers, Jose, and defensive linemen, and going head first into the teeth of defenses, wouldn't you know it, it's a possibility you could get injured. And then he got injured one too many times, and it affected his throwing shoulder in 2018, and he was never the same after that. Never the same after 2018 when he injured that throwing shoulder, and it was very apparent there, not only in this brief stint with Carolina recently, but when he was with New England as well, when he played a full season of starting quarterback as there. But it's just, to describe what Cam Newton is right now, up and down. He has some moments of athletic ability, and then it goes down, crashing down with his realistic expectations of throwing the ball. Jose, those last games with Carolina, he could not throw the ball accurately past 10 yards.
Yeah.
He couldn't. I saw the games, and I'm like, he can't throw the ball downfield. Like, he can't throw it downfield like it's and that was a huge part of his game, Jose. If you ask anybody who watched Cam Newton play, I saw him play when he was at Auburn. A huge part of his game was being able to chuck the ball deep. That big, deep passing ability.
Yep.
It's gone. And with that being gone, along with his athletic ability, it's not Cam Newton. He likes to say that who are these randoms getting jobs? To quote our friend Shannon Sharp from Undisputed, who's not really our friend, but we love who he is.
Right.
He's like, Cam, I hate to break it to you, you're one of those randoms.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, it's just like
that's how the league views you now. Yes.
Yeah. To to quote him exactly what he said on Undisputed, what we just said is that's how the league views you. You are one of those randoms, and he's absolutely right. It's just, Cam, you're not the same guy anymore. It's okay. You had your time. It's over. It's over.
100%, yeah.
It's plain and simple.
Yeah. Yeah, it's over. And especially with the New England Patriots, it wasn't just a physical ability. It was also a deficiency with his industriousness, right? Because there were rumors going on saying that Mac Jones, he had a questionable work ethic from what we were hearing too, right? So there were rumors in 2020 when Mac Jones was brought on, right? Or excuse me, yeah, in 2020 when Mac Jones was brought on as the new quarterback for the New England Patriots, right? When he was brought on, when he was brought on, right, there were rumors going around that Mac Jones was teaching Cam Newton the playbook. Like the rookie quarterback was the one that was teaching Cam Newton, the veteran, the Super Bowl, the one with the Super Bowl under his belt, not a win, but a Super Bowl trip back in 2015. He was teaching him the playbook. So obviously, if this rumor is going around, there's a huge problem there, right? And if this rumor is true, there's a huge problem there, right? So with Cam Newton having the mindset that he does at this point in time, saying things like, "Oh, there aren't 32 quarterbacks better than I am," like, I hate to break it to you, but at this point, it seems as though there are, right? Because you're just not who you used to be, Ricardo, as you have mentioned already. What team? Also, lack of skill aside, what team is going to want to contend with the personality that you bring in the locker room?
Yep. Like, seriously.
Yeah. So at this point in time, his stats have only dwindled, right? It's only gotten worse and worse each and every year since 2015, and even significantly more so since 2018, Ricardo. So let Cam Newton, it's fine. It's all right. Just go ahead, hang it up, and say that's it, right? Like you said, Ricardo, he's had his time in the sun, and if he were to try to come back into the NFL once again, right, and start throwing at Auburn Day and saying things and saying all this stuff like, I'm better than this guy, I'm better than that guy, you're not. And that is the unfortunate reality, right? So it seems as though Cam Newton really just needs to step down and say, that's enough. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's just... not to say like, okay, let's say he really was planning this out like a comeback to come in. Mm-hmm. Like, he didn't plan this out strategically, Jose. All the teams that want their quarterback have him. The time to show that he was ready for this comeback was like late December, early January, when teams were just starting the offseason.
Right.
Most of the teams have the plan and ready to go with the quarterback they're going to go with in the future.
Right.
Like, they're already set. So like, to wait till a pro day, like, you're not thinking ahead. Now, granted, there may be some injuries happening this season. There always are, and he might sign with a team that's desperate to get a veteran. But it's very rarely for me to see them. Like, I don't see a team signing him this season when it gets hurt, because what you said, Jose, the ego of being the starting quarterback, and it's just not the same guy anymore. Not the same guy anymore. To put this into perspective, Jose, so people understand, Cam Newton was a first-round pick in the NFL draft in 2011 for the Carolina Panthers. It's now 2023. The Carolina Panthers are the number one pick for the NFL draft. Like, it's just it shows how different times are from when he started to now. Like, it's okay, Cam. Like, you had a good career, like a good career. Some people say great. I say good, because he definitely did the most of what he could. He was close. He got the team to a Super Bowl. Right. By hook or crook, he got the team to a Super Bowl, won his NFL MVP, and was able to have a longevity in the NFL. But it's like I said, Jose, that play style is what affected him, getting one too many injuries, and it changes his arm, and it hurt his arm to the point where he can't get enough zip on the ball. And Jose, I don't know if you saw the highlights from that pro day. It's not impressive.
It's not.
Those balls.
It's not. No.
Those balls were in the air for quite a bit of time. Like, there wasn't any zip on them, and it was very slow, and it took a while for them to get to the receivers. So it's he's not helping. He's not helping himself right here, and he should just let sleeping dogs lie. Like, let it go, and just move on to the next phase of his life.
I believe so too. Now that we're on the topic of the New England Patriots, we should start getting just straight into it, Ricardo. I mean, Cam Newton being part of the New England Patriots, and the New England Patriots quarterback position is now somewhat in question, right? Because Devin McCourty being the legendary Patriot that he is, right, just recently retired. He stepped down, and he is coming out and saying that the locker room is pretty much split on Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, right? They're not entirely sure who they're going to be sticking with, because Bailey Zappi had some pretty good moments this past season, Ricardo, and I was looking forward to seeing what else he could bring to the table. But my sympathy also does lie with Mac Jones in the sense that he hasn't had any not any opportunity, but he's had minimal opportunity, particularly this past season in the NFL, to show who he truly is as a quarterback, right? But with this quarterback position being in turmoil, right, being questioned, it seems as though Mac Jones is really doing his best to just claw his way up there. So that leaves me to start questioning, Ricardo, what exactly is it? What exactly is it that's stopping the Patriots from saying Mac Jones is our guy or Bailey Zappi is our guy? Why are they so split?
Yeah, no, it's Jose, I got to be honest with you. Like, when Devin McCourty retired, this was not the main topic that I was expecting off of this. I was just expecting, look back at the Patriots dynasty after winning 3 titles, specifically that Dante Hightower joined him as well, like a couple days after.
Right.
So my point being is that it does leave some pause for concern if the team was that split as far as who the quarterback should be. Now, in defense of Mac Jones, Jose, in his defense, we have been the ones saying, ever since we started this podcast last year, what are you doing signing a defensive coordinator and a special teams guy to lead your offense?
Right.
Like, hire an offensive coordinator, get some consistency, and that way your offense can have an identity and a better identity than as opposed to, like, let's run it 50 times a game and let's see what map comes up with the passing concepts and the passing plays. It was an embarrassment, Jose. It was an embarrassment, like, coaching-wise, seeing, like, how, like, the plays that were shown around him. Jose, I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I sent you a picture. There was a point where there were 3 Patriots wide receivers running routes, all within 5 yards of each other.
Exactly.
Pretty much making it easy to cover and be like, okay, cool, we'll just stand here and wait for you guys to, like, figure it out. So my point being is that in defense of Mac Jones, they had idiocy behind the offensive coordinator position, and it looks like Belichick's ego is getting reined in a bit. But there should be still some chance for Mac Jones to prove himself, meaning because I say this. When Kyler Murray was still a rookie and they wanted to prove his worth, they got him DeAndre Hopkins. With Joe Burrow after his rookie season, they drafted Jamar Chase.
Right.
Jalen Hurts, they got him A.J. Brown. So, like, just try to get him a realistic number 1 receiver and see how the guy performs when he had weapons. We said this all the time. With Alabama, when he had weapons, he was able to ding, 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 move the ball around, get rid of his hand, let his players make the plays for him. And it was a very successful season for Alabama. He led them to a national championship. So my point being is that I hope it's just frustration off of the players' end of how mediocre and pedestrian the offense was than it was how personally Mac Jones was, because we did see him yelling on the sideline. We did see him throw his helmet down in some games. So that's what concerns me, and that's what I'm thinking, like, it might be a little bit of that too. But hopefully it's more of the production.
Exactly, Ricardo. And that was the thing that I was going to start throwing into the mix as well, is Mac Jones throughout this season was very frustrated on the sideline many times. There were many times out of the season where he had thrown his helmet down, where he was yelling, saying, pass the ball around, the run game sucks. All right. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he did say those exact words. But those words he did say exactly. The run game sucks. Right. The run game only carried them so far. There's no pun intended there, but it only carried them so far. Right. So for him to put the ball into the air, he was constantly putting it in harm's way simply because of just the way the offensive scheme was put together. right? So now that Bill O'Brien has come back, right, and he's starting to take over the role as the offensive coordinator with the New England Patriots, there's less of an excuse for Mac Jones to play a lackluster season, right? Now, if they were to bring on a number one receiver, as you say, Ricardo, there's going to be even less of an excuse to do so. All right. Mm-hmm. So now that they need to rein it back in, they need to rein it back in more so, Ricardo, because it seems as though Bill Belichick's ego is starting to come back, like you said, Ricardo, since he with the recent signing of Mr. O'Brien. But beyond that, we need to rein it back more, and we need to start looking at what exactly the trouble spots are. One of those being that wide receiver position. We need to start looking at who's potentially going to be that number one. DeAndre Hopkins, sure, sign him over. That'll be fantastic. Not to steal him away from you guys, Ricardo, but that would be fantastic to see him come over.
Someone might as well have use for him. Apparently, our quarterback doesn't know that that's the number one option.
Right.
Someone have use of his career.
Yeah,
Jesus.
exactly. No, they're banking all their money on Hollywood Brown over there. But I digress, Ricardo. Anyway, we need that number one. And as soon as that number one comes over and starts making his way into the fold, that's when Mac Jones is going to have his opportunity to shine and say, hey, you know what? There's no excuse for me now. I got my guy. I got my number one.
I would recommend getting Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee. Guy looks like he'd be tremendous. Jackson Smith and Juba out of Ohio State. That guy might be gone early, but there's plenty of weapons in the first round. So if you don't trade for DeAndre Hopkins, Jose, you got plenty of options here. If I swear, Jose, if they get another no-name player, specifically a guard out of Tulsa, just like I don't think it was out of Tulsa, a no-name player in the draft, and don't get any explosive weapons that they need, I'm like, they're setting this guy up to fail. They're setting him up to fail because they're not trying to get the best weapons necessarily from him. We get it, Bill. And then I'm saying this to like Bill Belichick needs to hear this, I guess, because we get it. You were able to do with Tom Brady's success on the offense with just average to good receivers, not necessarily true number ones, and it worked.
But that's Tom Brady.
It's not going to work again.
But that's Tom Brady.
It's not going to work again.
Tom Brady was the kind of quarterback to make anything work, right? The season before their undefeated season, he had a receiving core made of bench warmers, and secondary guys. That was his receiving core, and he was still able to pull something off with them.
It's because Belichick needs to hear this. Jose. He needs to understand that it's not the same old NFL anymore. You have to get a number one in order to be relevant again. Does he want to be relevant again? Does he want to try to win that elusive Super Bowl without Tom? Does he want to pass Don Shula for number of record wins by a head coach all time? Then you got to get weapons. That's plain and simple. You have to get weapons on the offense. There's no ifs, ands, ors about it. And if you can't get in the draft, then sign a guy or trade for a guy. Do whatever it takes. I mean, the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown. No one thought that the Tennessee Titans were going to get rid of him, but the Eagles were like, hey, our first round for A.J. Brown. You can have him. We just want him. They're like, sure, yeah, let's do it. So let's see. Like you said, Jose, he needs to pull the reins back on the ego and realize, okay, this is what's wrong with this team. We need to address these problems right now in order to get better as a franchise and be back with a solid chance to make the postseason. Because I'll be honest, Jose, they're not looking too good when it comes to the AFC East as far as potential, which team's going to come in last place.
Yeah.
And which team's going to try to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, Tua is hurt for the Miami Dolphins, but we'll see what they end up doing at quarterback. So, Patriots can't just sit like they did last year.
They can't.
Just hope that it all works out. That Belichick's genius will find a way.
It won't. It won't. Because what is it that we continue to talk about, Ricardo, as far as just the team field play goes? It doesn't matter how many great receivers you have. It doesn't matter if you have a stellar offensive line. You need that leader. You need that piece. All right. They're one of the heads of that three-headed snake, as we have continued to reference time and time again. You have a solid GM, you have a solid head coach, and you need a solid quarterback. Mm-hmm. Right? If you have all three of those pieces in line, the rest will take care of itself. right? Because you have good decisions being made in the front office, you have good decisions being made as far as the play calling goes, and you have good decisions that are being made in the moment on the field as they need to be. So that leadership role, that leadership position, honestly, Ricardo, at this point, I don't care who gets it. As long as they pick somebody who is willing to lead, number one, lead the team, and number two, who is able to make those competent decisions on the field. When they're forced into a corner, literally, quite literally, and they're being asked to improvise, right? As the sport of football goes, right? But I think at this point in time, last year they did a huge disservice to Mac Jones, and this year I would hate to see him sidelined for Bailey Zappi, a brand new quarterback who we don't know what's going to happen in the future with his technical ability. Who's to say that he's not going to have a Mac Jones type season that he did last year, even with the talent that's going to be surrounding him?
Exactly. Like you can't just switch quarterback to quarterback and hope that things work out.
No.
And like that's the definition of football. If you have two quarterbacks, Jose, you have none. So they have to build the team properly, get solid weapons and place them around the team, and then see what he does with that. And after that, let's say best case scenario. Let's say they trade for DeAndre Hopkins, or they get a number one receiver from the college NFL draft that you can tell can play.
Right.
Like it's not going to be a bust. Can play like a good receiver in the NFL.
Yep.
And he's still having issues throwing the ball. Then you go that direction and be like, okay, we might have to move in a different direction. If the team's like well built around him and he's still struggling, we might have to look at something else here. But if it's the same old bowl of just let's play conservative offense, vanilla style passing concepts, and just play good defensively, and then let's see if we can win the game off of that. You're not even, let alone Mac Jones, a disservice. You're doing the team a disservice by going that route, because it's clear that that's not going to work in order to win the games you need to if you want to make the postseason. So they have to build the team properly. They have to go around it, and then if you still see struggling play at the quarterback position, that's when you move. That's when you're like, okay, we made a mistake. We drafted him first round. It doesn't look like it's working out. But you have to give the guy a chance.
Yeah.
You have to give the guy a chance. You can't just be like, okay, like 1 week we'll go with him, but like he's struggling this week, let's go with Bailey. Oh, Bailey's not looking too good. Let's go back to Mac. We don't want to give her the starting job. You have to have consistency.
Because not only, Ricardo, not only are you shifting the quarterback, the leadership position from this person to that person who could have diametrically different styles of play, you're also doing the rest of the team a disservice, because they're going to have to adjust to whoever's holding the ball in the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say that they're going to be able to adjust to that too? Because what's the Patriot motto, Ricardo? Do your job. 100% all of the time, do your job. That is literally the motto of the New England Patriots. So if you're going to be stepping into the Patriots circle and you're going to be attempting to do your job, it's going to be harder to do your job when you have changing circumstances seemingly like every 2-3 plays, it seems like, right? They aren't interchangeable like running backs, right? Running backs could be interchangeable. You could change a running back out whenever you need to, right? You can bench one for the other. You can do that with pretty much any other position, it kind of seems like, except for the quarterback. You can't do that. You can't do that. Because they're the ones that are leading the entire game. They're the ones that are taking control of the clock. They're the ones that are taking control of where the ball goes.
Absolutely, Jose. And just to bring up, what does bring me hope, Jose, is that he did sign Bill O'Brien. And I watch college football more than you do.
Right.
Seeing Bill O'Brien play calling in Alabama, the guy does know what he's doing, calling plays. So, and with Bryce Young, who we think is the top prospect in this year's NFL draft, he did bring some explosiveness and creativity to help out Bryce Young to develop him per se. So you checked one box off. All right, we got an offensive coordinator. Check. Now we need to check that box of receiver. So you need to check that box up. You check that box. Check. All right. Mac Jones, our starter. Now let's go. Let's see how
let's just bank.
performs. Check.
Let's bank on him.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, going into his third year in the league, right? His first two being just this last year in particular being a rough season. His sophomore year, his sophomore season in the NFL. Although yes, Ricardo, he did throw a lot of questionable passes this past season, but honestly, there were a lot of other times where he wasn't given any other choice. So it seems as though at this point, Mac Jones put him in a position that Joe Burrow has been put in, that Patrick Mahomes has been put in, that Jalen Hurts has been put in, and see how he would play from that point on. Otherwise, don't question me about Mac Jones. Don't question me about Mac Jones because I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure, and I doubt that he was even feeling any kind of level of certainty himself without having the weapons that he would probably have around him. So beyond this, the New England Patriots need to continue to start looking at their trouble spots.
Absolutely, Jose. And I do want to take a moment here to appreciate some greatness of the New England Patriots franchise here, if you don't mind me doing.
Go ahead.
Them having two players recently retire, two players that I watched start their careers, and to see them retire, they're both great pieces. You messaged me, Jose, when Dante Hightower retired. I think he's a Hall of Famer, and quite frankly, I don't, because, and that's not an indictment on him. It's just there's not enough individual stats per se to put him in, and specifically for the position that he plays. But here's why. This way, and it's not an indictment against him, because there would be some nights where he was forced to pass rush more than anything, or he was supposed to play outside linebacker in coverage more than anything. And then there was times where he just played straight downhill football, just play the run, and then we'll see what happens. But one thing I will say, Jose, is that it's just I've never seen such a level of dominance and more elite play at the linebacker position from me personally saying, as far as instituting a game plan and playing your role to the best of your ability than Dante Hightower in those 3 Super Bowls. In those 3 Super Bowls, he played outstanding football and was the epitome of consistency, and was a huge leader, specifically fourth quarter football. And I'm going to bring this up because not many people know this. That first Super Bowl that Tom Brady won after going in a hiatus of 10 years of not winning one, and everyone remembers the interception, Jose. Everyone remembers the pick that happened by Malcolm Butler in the end zone.
Right.
You know what I remember happening? The play before. I remember Marshawn Lynch breaking through tackles, going 4 yards. It was first and goal at the 5, going towards the end zone. And I remember seeing Dante Hightower push off an all-pro guard and tackle Marshawn Lynch with one arm to stop him at the half-yard line. That's what I remember. Right. And that was and he saved that, and he saved the day, because if he doesn't make that tackle and Seattle scores, it's likely that Tom doesn't go on the roll that he eventually goes. Right. So it was very, very game-changing there. That's one play I'll never forget from Dante Hightower.
I think I know the next one that you're going to talk about.
I
already know. Yep.
We all know the play, but it's iconic. It's no questions. The Patriots had to, after scoring a touchdown, stumbled on offense and just kicked another field goal to see how it goes. And Dante Hightower made the play of the game on defense, because I know Edelman had the catch, so you can make an argument which was the play of the game. Right. But the play of the game on defense, going through Devontae Freeman and getting that strip sack. Life-changing.
On Matt Ryan in Super Bowl 51, yep.
Yes, life-changing. Never forget that play. Key moment, clutch moment in the game. Clutch players make clutch plays. Second Super Bowl in a row that he makes a clutch play in order to win it. Last Super Bowl, it didn't necessarily need a clutch play from him, but the whole game, the toughness and the dominance and the pressure that him and that linebacker core, but I remember him getting more than one sack on that game, sacking Jared Goff, tackling him on the field, and then putting pressure on that run game, and then forcing just an incredible performance to slow down that offensive juggernaut that was back in the day. Right. Now, I know Belichick is the game planner and the schematic, but he's always said, coaches coach, the players have to play. in order to make the coaches look good.
Right.
So like
They do. And
was
he did.
one of the reasons that defense looked amazing in those 3 Super Bowls, and I personally will not forget it. And I say he was a little underrated in his career because he's part of the Patriot way, like a quiet guy, but he made amazing plays and he had a great career. And I'm happy that he's at the point where he can comfortably retire, knowing that fully well that he could still play a couple more seasons if he wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
I would say like 3 more seasons. But he's like, no, I'm comfortable. Like, I got enough money. I did all that I accomplished. I'm okay with there. Devin McCourty, Jose, he was part of the early drought of like the Brady season as far as like struggling to like try to get back Super Bowls.
Yep.
And he captain of that defense, man, safety of that defense, like he was always there. He was always the last line of defense for that defense, and by God, he was an important part of it. And I can't believe he's done with playing, man. I just can't believe it. Like I've seen him play like his whole career, and it's just I'm getting old, man. That's what I'm saying. I'm feeling old. I've seen these guys play my whole and it's just they're gone now. So, but 2 key pieces to the Patriots dynasty. Without them, they don't win those 3 Super Bowls. There's not a doubt in my mind, and I wish them well.
Yes, they deserve that kind of send-off. 1,000% they deserve that kind of send-off. Devin McCourty and Dante Hightower having phenomenal careers. Not necessarily Hall of Famers stats-wise, but we know what kind of plays they were able to bring simply because we have 2 eyes, right? And with those 2 eyes, we have seen we have witnessed the plays, and we have witnessed the key moments that they have been a part of, right? So best wishes to both Devin McCourty and Dante Hightower. Take that time, rest. You both deserve it. Yeah. No, they most definitely will be part of the Patriots Ring of Honor for sure. Right, their names will be held high in the New England Patriots stadium in Foxborough. So with that being said, Ricardo, I think that's a good way to wrap this episode up. I mean, there's a pretty slow news week, especially since we're waiting on more news with Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers to see where exactly they continue to end up. We didn't want to talk too much more about them simply because we already did dedicate certain episodes to them. At this point in time, it's really worth talking about some of the underrated, some of the up and coming teams like the New York Jets, right, and them starting to make some moves, as well as the Chicago Bears from last week, right. It's great to see these teams starting to make some moves and starting to improve what they already did this past season. So we're really excited about these guys because, I mean, going into it, they were the underdogs, and they surprised the hell out of us this past season.
No, absolutely, and it's going to be very interesting. This is what the offseason is all about, Jose. Sometimes it's about waiting and seeing what happens, but like you said, the news we all know that's happening that we didn't mention in this episode, we would have been redundant in saying our opinions because we already dedicated our opinions as far as what we think should happen for certain guys, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. But I'm good wrapping it up here as well, man. And I just want to say congratulations. Not many players can say they're 3-time Super Bowl champions.
Oh, yeah.
Dante Hightower and Devin McCourty. And it was a great episode, guys. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. And if you like what you hear, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow our Instagram at RJTalks_11. Thanks a lot. Good night, and we'll see you next week.